The city was just waking up, but Manhattan's financial district was already alive. People hurried in suits, coffee in hand, smartphones practically fused to their palms. The flow never stopped. On the corner near the West Tower Business Center, home of the investment company Crown Capital, stood an elderly woman. Gray coat, knitted hat, a small folding table, at her feet with two insulated bags. From one of them, she gently took out homemade hand pies, perfectly shaped, golden brown. A handwritten sign read, "Homemade pies, meat and cabbage, fresh, $2." Jason Miller stepped out of a black car. 28 years old, sharp suit, confidence in every step, headphones in his ears, coffee in hand, jaw slightly lifted like the city belonged to him. Behind him trailed his colleague and friend Trevor, sleepy-eyed but always ready to laugh. "Check this out," Jason nudged Trevor, pointing at the woman. "What is this? Penn Station?" Trevor snorted. Jason pulled out his phone, opened the camera. "Gotta record a story. The world needs to see this culinary madness." He filmed the woman, then turned the camera on himself. "Morning, Wolves of Wall Street. Here's your new crypto alternative. Invest in pies, and you're guaranteed a stable stomach crisis." He laughed. So did Trevor. The woman said nothing, only looked at him, not with anger, but with a quiet sorrow. Jason didn't notice. "All right, let's go. Big meeting today," Jason said, sipping his coffee. "Rumor has it someone's buying into the company." "Probably just another Chinese holding," Trevor mumbled. "They only care about numbers and assets." They disappeared behind the glass doors. The old woman sighed and gently put one of the pies aside, as if knowing it would go uneaten. 42nd floor, elevator ride done. They entered the office, sleek, sterile like an operating room. The space buzzed with numbers, graphs, and ambition. "You see how security looked at her?" Jason continued. "Like she's hiding cocaine in those pies. Ha! Local grandma runs a pastry cartel." "Actually, it smelled pretty good," Trevor noted. "Good? Careful, Trev. You're turning into a humanitarian. Dangerous for our bonuses." They laughed. Claire, the director's assistant, walked in crisp and cold. "Board meeting immediately. Top floor. Everyone important." "What happened?" Trevor asked. "Didn't check your email?" "New investor. Huge one. Confidentiality level 10. No name, just the number of zeros." "Let's go." Jason paused for a beat, glanced out the window. Downstairs, the same old woman, closing her bag, adjusting her scarf. "You know," Jason muttered, "if it were her, I'd probably quit on the spot." "Who? The pie lady?" "Yeah." Trevor chuckled. "You're an idiot. Let's go, future CIO." They vanished into the depths of the office. Outside, the woman looked up at the skyscraper, pulled out her phone, and opened a message. "Tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m., Board of Directors. Please confirm Mrs. West." She tapped "Confirm," slipped the phone into her coat, and calmly walked away. The office buzzed. Like a hive before a storm, hurried steps, hushed whispers, people staring at screens, chats, internal newsletters. Something had happened. Not just something big enough to shake the very foundation of the company. Jason leaned back in his chair, latte in hand, watching the panic like a spectator at a show. "You heard?" Trevor dropped into the seat next to him, voice low. "Someone just bought the controlling stake. Board's panicking. Emergency meeting at 11. Executive team only." "So?" Jason casually scrolled on his phone. "Business as usual. Whoever's got the money makes the rules. New investor today, new one next month. This isn't amateur hour." "Yeah, but usually we get a heads up. This time, nothing. No name, no company, just rumors. Some say it's not a firm. It's an individual." "An individual?" Jason smirked. "Cute. Who's got that kind of cash? And no lawyers, no press team?" "Apparently someone does," Trevor muttered. "And I don't like it." Jason shrugged. He'd always stayed afloat. Even in chaos, he believed his ship would never sink. His career plan, bonuses, partner track, all mapped out. What did it matter who was at the top? He was adaptable. 30 minutes later, the executive team gathered in the Atlas conference room. The atmosphere was dense, like the silence before a courtroom verdict. Richard Stanton, CEO, stood at the front of the room. Normally a calm speaker, his voice today held a faint tension. Colleagues, he began. Last night, a controlling stake in Crown Capital was sold. The deal is clean, audited, fully legal. The board has been briefed. A wave of murmurs spread across the room. Someone cleared their throat. Claire's coffee rippled in its cup. The new owner has requested anonymity until tomorrow morning, Stanton continued. At 10 a.m., this individual will meet with our leadership team in person. In person? Someone repeated in disbelief. Yes, this individual insisted on direct contact. Let me clarify again. This is not a corporation or fund. It's a private individual. Even Jason stopped smiling. His face tightened. Wait, one person? Bought our company? That's hundreds of millions. Correct. All documents are legitimate. The identity remains sealed until the meeting. I have one question, Jason cut in. What does this mean for us? Stanton looked tired. That depends entirely on what this person wants to change. For now, there are no layoffs, but one thing is clear. This company no longer belongs to us. After the meeting, Jason stood by the window, looking down at the street. Same hustle, same traffic, same crowd. And there she was, the woman with the pies, standing calmly near the entrance. Her eyes wandered upward, thoughtful, as if she could see all 42 floors. Their eyes met for a second. Jason felt a strange discomfort, as if she knew something. As if, he muttered and turned away, heading back to his office with a sharp snap of the door. But something inside him had already shifted. It was late evening. Jason's apartment on the 36th floor offered a panoramic view of the Hudson River. Spacious, modern, minimalist, though it lacked warmth. The microwave hummed, heating leftover takeout. The TV murmured in the background, ignored. Jason sat on the floor, surrounded by cardboard boxes. They were filled with his late mother's belongings, things he had postponed sorting for nearly a year. He had told himself he was too busy, but deep down, he knew he just didn't want to remember. Photos, letters, old receipts. He found a small box at the bottom, sealed with tape that had long lost its stick. Inside, childhood drawings, a hospital wristband, a faded photo. He paused. It was an old black and white photo of a woman in her 60s, neatly dressed, hair pulled back, expression calm and intelligent. On the back, a handwritten note. Agatha W., 1983. Agatha? Jason whispered, narrowing his eyes. Something about the name felt familiar. He returned to the box. At the bottom, folded neatly, was a letter. The paper was yellowed, the ink faded but legible, clearly written by a woman. Agatha, I'm sorry it turned out this way. I made a choice and I can't undo it. I hope you find peace. L. That was it. No last names, no date. Jason stared at the photo again. The name rang in his mind like a dull echo. Agatha W. He picked up his phone, scrolled through his notes from the board meeting. There it was. Anonymous investor, private individual, no name disclosed. His chest tightened. Could it be? He shook his head. Coincidence. Just a coincidence. 20 minutes later, he was in Queens, standing in front of his father's old house. The man still lived alone, surrounded by dusty furniture, worn carpets, and the faint scent of old cologne and quiet resentment. You're late, his father grumbled, opening the door. I need to talk, Jason replied flatly. They sat in the kitchen. His father poured himself tea. Jason didn't wait. I found a photo among Mom's things, a woman named Agatha. Do you know who she is? His father was silent for a long moment. Then he shrugged. Probably an old friend. Your mother had a life before me. Jason narrowed his eyes. A friend? She wrote her a letter, apologizing. It sounded personal. You never mentioned anything like this before. We didn't share everything. That's normal in a marriage. No, it's not this. We never had family around. No uncles, no cousins, no one ever called or visited. And now there's a mysterious woman and a letter full of regret. Who was she, Dad? His father didn't look at him, just took another sip of tea. Sometimes it's better not to know, Jason. The past is the past. What if it's not? Another long pause. I can't help you. Even if I could, I wouldn't. Why? Because it's not your burden to carry. It was between them. Let it be. Jason clenched his jaw. He wanted to shout, to demand answers. But he saw it in his father's eyes, a door firmly closed. He left the house in silence, the box under his arm. In the car, he stared at the photo. The woman's eyes seemed to look through him, and suddenly the pieces began to shift. The face, the scarf, the eyes, the pie vendor. No. Impossible. He sat frozen in the driver's seat, a cold knot forming in his stomach. Could she be the same woman? And if so, what did it mean? Morning arrived, but not like usual. At Crown Capital, tension buzzed in the air like static before a thunderstorm. Normally, sharp-dressed executives exchanged hushed words and sidelong glances. Phones buzzed. Rumors swirled. No one knew who the mysterious investor was, the one who now owned the company. Near the elevators, Claire pinned up a paper with a list of appointments. 10 a.m. Introduction to the new majority owner. Jason saw his name in the third slot. 11:30 a.m. Jason Miller. His stomach twisted. He hated the feeling, not fear exactly, but something close, unease. At 10 sharp, the executive team gathered in the Atlas conference room. The air was thick with speculation. On the screen, the company logo glowed. At the head of the table, Richard Stanton stood up, visibly tense. Thank you all for coming. Today I have the honor of introducing the new controlling shareholder of Crown Capital. The deal is finalized, verified, and fully legal. He nodded toward the door. This individual chose to meet you in person. No lawyers, no press, just a conversation. The door opened. Silence fell like a dropped curtain. An elderly woman stepped into the room. Gray coat, neat hair in a bun, a cane in one hand, calm, steady steps. It was her, the woman from the street, the one with the pies. Jason froze. She walked to the center of the room. No pomp, no pretense, just presence. Good morning, she said, her voice clear and composed. Thank you for having me. My name is not important, not yet. What matters is that I'm here not to dismantle, but to build, to rebuild perhaps, to change the tone. A few heads tilted, brows raised. Jason could feel the disbelief, the judgment in the air. This? Her? The woman smiled faintly. I may not look like what you expected, but sometimes the ones you least expect are the ones who've been watching longest. Business is not just numbers, it's people. And that's where we start. Someone in the back coughed. A slow, hesitant applause began. Others joined, unsure but compliant. Jason didn't clap. Her eyes met his, calm, direct. And suddenly, he was sure. She knew who he was. Later that day, Jason leaned against a column in the hallway. Trevor approached, eyes wide. Was that the pie lady? The one from your story? I thought it was a joke. Jason didn't respond. She looked right at you, Trevor added, like she knew you. Jason nodded slowly. She does, he said quietly. Trevor blinked. What do you mean? I don't know yet, Jason murmured, but I intend to find out. Back in his office, Jason opened the drawer where he'd placed the photo of Agatha W. He stared at the handwriting, the date. Then back at the conference room door she'd walked through. The pieces were beginning to align. Too perfectly. Too deliberately. This wasn't business. It was personal. He didn't know the full truth, not yet. But he could feel it coming. The next morning, Crown Capital felt quieter than usual. Tension hung in the air like fog. No one spoke loudly. The elevator chimed more softly. Eyes darted to the list Claire had posted by the entrance. Private meetings with the new owner were underway. Jason saw his name still listed for 11:30. He'd barely slept. The woman, Agatha, was real, alive, and in charge. His mind reeled, stuck between denial and truth. He straightened his tie anyway, forced on a confident face, and walked toward the 39th floor. The room was not like the others in the building. No glass walls, no cold lighting, no sterile design. Instead, warm wood, low bookshelves, fresh flowers, and a table set for tea. Agatha sat by the window, dressed simply but with quiet dignity. No assistant, no files. Just her and the city behind her. Come in, Mr. Miller, she said softly. Please, have a seat. He sat across from her, trying not to show nerves. I assume you understand that my arrival here was not accidental, she began. But don't worry. I'm not here for a witch hunt. Well, that's a relief, he said with a smirk. I've reviewed your work, she continued, ignoring the sarcasm. You're sharp, fast, goal-driven, but also, she paused, you're cruel. Jason flinched. Silence fell. You treat people as numbers. Your recent merger pitch suggested mass layoffs, with no discussion of consequences. Not a single line about the human impact, just figures. That's how business works, he said, a little sharper than he intended. We're not running a charity. What if one of those people were your father? Or your mother? She asked gently. Would they still be just a percentage? He said nothing. You know, he began after a pause, you're not just some lady off the street, are you? Why this company? Why now? She looked at him, calm, unwavering. Because I've been watching for a long time, and I realized it was time to intervene, not to punish, to correct. Sometimes, things must be shaken from the outside. He stood abruptly. Are you trying to get rid of me? I'm not trying anything, Mr. Miller, she replied. But if you continue to treat people like disposable assets, this place will leave you behind on its own. He turned towards the door. She called after him almost casually. You look a lot like your mother. He froze. What did you say? Nothing special, Agatha said. Just an observation. In the hallway, Jason stood still. Her words echoed inside him. You look like your mother. He hadn't told her anything. Nothing about the photo. Nothing about the letter. Nothing about the note signed L. She knew. His mind raced. The resemblance, the past, the silence from his father. The pieces were forming a picture he wasn't ready to see, but couldn't ignore. He took the elevator down, walked out into the lobby, and glanced toward the street. Agatha was there. Again. This time she was speaking to someone from accounting, smiling warmly, nodding as they spoke. She looked like a neighbor, like someone's aunt, but Jason saw it clearly now. The steel under her softness. The patience of someone who had lost and waited and planned. She held his future in her hands, and maybe a piece of his past, too. That evening, Jason returned home in a daze. He couldn't remember the drive, just vague shapes of traffic lights, the rhythm of windshield wipers, the silence in his chest. You look like your mother. Agatha's words played in his mind over and over, like a whisper inside a well. He dropped his keys on the table, kicked off his shoes, and went straight for the box of his mother's things, the one he'd kept tucked in the closet for years. Until now, it was just a container of memories. But now it felt like evidence. He opened the box again, slower this time, page by page, envelope by envelope. And then he found it. Tucked inside an old hardback book with a faded gold spine titled Women We Never Knew, was a folded scrap of paper. He unfolded it carefully. His mother's handwriting, delicate, slanted, leapt off the page. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't bring myself to tell you. I tried, I swear, but I couldn't. Agatha's more than you think. Forgive me, I was just scared. Lauren. Jason's throat tightened. Agatha. More than he thought. He stood up, grabbed his laptop, and started digging. Agatha West biography. Agatha West investor. Agatha W. Manhattan. Nothing substantial. A few charity mentions. A low-resolution photo that didn't even look like her. The woman was a ghost. But she wasn't a ghost to him. He pulled the photo from the box again. The one dated in 1983. Agatha looked younger, but the eyes? Those eyes were unmistakable. Sharp, sad, determined. He remembered a moment from his childhood. His mother once said after a long silence, everyone has something they'll never tell, even the ones they love. Back then, it had sounded mysterious. Now it sounded like a warning. The next morning, he didn't go to the office. He texted Claire, taking a personal day, family matters. By midday, he was in the city archives, an actual library, dusty and slow, the opposite of everything he knew. But he needed facts older than Google. He combed through microfilm, old registers, local newspapers, and finally, a breakthrough. An article from a small 1985 publication. Young entrepreneur Agatha West declines federal funding and closes charity foundation following a family tragedy. No photo, just a small buried paragraph. Sources say the decision may be tied to a custody dispute involving a former business partner's family. Jason stared at the words, heart pounding. Custody, family, his mother? He stepped outside, squinting into the sunlight. The sounds of the city felt distant, muffled. A new thought had taken hold of him, cold and solid. What if Agatha wasn't just part of the past? What if she was his family? That night, Jason sat in silence, holding his phone. He scrolled to Claire's contact and typed, I need another meeting with Mrs. West. Not as an employee, as something else. The reply came minutes later. I'll pass it on. He put the phone down and stared out the window. The skyline glittered with ambition. The streets pulsed with motion. But for the first time in years, Jason didn't care about meetings or titles. He needed the truth, not from spreadsheets, from someone who had lived it. Claire called near sunset. She's agreed to meet you. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, at her apartment. Jason hesitated. Address? I'll send it. No questions, no office, no suits. Just him and her, on her terms. Agatha lived in a quiet part of Westchester, in a modest, well-kept building lined with trees. There was no gate, no staff, no sign of wealth. Just a small nameplate on the doorbell. A. West. Jason knocked. She opened the door herself, wearing a soft cardigan and a patterned scarf, her hair pulled back, her presence calm, collected. Come in, Jason, she said gently. The apartment was bright, filled with books, framed photos, small details that told a story of a life lived fully and maybe quietly. On one wall, he noticed a portrait of a young woman holding a baby. He stopped. Is that my mom? Agatha nodded. And you? Jason blinked. What? She motioned for him to sit. He obeyed, not as an employee, not as a stranger, but as someone on the edge of something much bigger. I never wanted you to find out this way, she began, but I suppose the time came anyway. He said nothing. Lauren, your mother, was my daughter, my only child. I had her in 1960. I was 19. Just a girl with no money, a dream of running a business, and a baby. Her father left when he found out I was pregnant. So I raised her alone. Jason stared at her. She never mentioned she wouldn't. I made mistakes. In 1985, during a crisis with my business, I pushed her away. She wanted to marry someone I didn't approve of. Your father, I assume. We fought badly. She left, and then she vanished. Her voice was steady, but there was grief underneath. When I heard she had a son, I tried to reach out, but she was sick by then. And your father, Jason tensed. He knew who you were. Yes, but he blamed me for everything. And maybe he was right. He didn't want me near you. Jason stared at the floor. He could hear his pulse in his ears. So why now? He asked. Why buy the company? Why show up now? Because I watched you, Jason, she said softly. And I saw myself in you. Cold, driven, detached. I thought, if I can't change the past, maybe I can stop the future from repeating it. He stood up, restless. I don't even know what to call you. You're my, what, grandmother? If that's too much, just call me Agatha. That's enough. He turned to the window. The sky was pale blue, streaked with the gold of early morning. I don't know what to do with this. Any of it. You don't have to know right away, she said. But do something different. Don't let the world harden you the way it did me. That's all I ask. He looked back at her. She wasn't a stranger anymore. She was a part of him. A piece he hadn't known was missing until now. When he stepped outside, the street was quiet, damp with morning dew. For the first time in a long time, he felt the weight of something real. Not a title, not a bonus. Family. He didn't know yet if he could forgive everything, but he knew he didn't want to run anymore. A week passed. Jason didn't go back to the office. He didn't call clients. He didn't check stock reports. For the first time in years, he let the noise of business fall silent. He spent hours sitting with memories, not numbers, but moments. His mother's laughter, the silence at dinner, her faraway eyes in her final months. But louder than all of that was Agatha's voice. Not commanding, not demanding, just human. One evening, he picked up the phone and called her. "I'd like to talk," he said. "Not as an employee, as your grandson." "Come over," she replied gently. They sat in the kitchen across from each other, 2 cups of tea between them. A tray of warm meat pies filled the air with comforting smells. "You still bake these yourself?" he asked, picking one up. "Of course. I've been baking since I was a child. When you can't fix your life, dough helps. You can knead it, shape it, it doesn't judge." He nodded, took a bite. It tasted like home, and he didn't know why. "I hardly remember Mom before she got sick," he said. "I remember her perfume, her voice when she sang, but most of all, I remember how distant she was. Warm, but always somewhere else." Agatha's expression softened. She was proud just like me, but also fragile. Also like me. I broke her heart in ways I'll never stop regretting. "Why didn't you ever try harder to find me?" "I did," she said, "but your father shut every door, and I started to believe I didn't deserve you." He looked down. "I became everything you feared she would. Cold, ruthless, obsessed with control. You became what the world rewarded," she corrected. "You adapted, but you don't have to stay that way." They sat in silence. Then Jason looked at her. "When you saw me that first day, handing out pies, did you know?" "I knew immediately," she said. "I recognized your eyes, your walk. The arrogance. I earned that once, too." He laughed, just a little. "You know, I hated you at first. I thought you were a fraud." "I am a fraud. Just one trying to do something good before time runs out." He leaned back. "What now?" Agatha smiled. "I want to open a kitchen for seniors, for those who feel forgotten. Free cooking classes, a place to gather. I'd like you to help." He raised an eyebrow. "With management? With heart?" He didn't answer right away, but something inside him shifted. That night, they talked for hours, not about numbers or legacy, about small things. Songs his mother liked. The pies Agatha used to make when Lauren was a child. About grief. About rebuilding. He told her about his childhood, his confusion, his questions. She listened without rushing to fix anything. By midnight, the tea had gone cold. But in that quiet, something rare had bloomed. Forgiveness. Not full, not final, but real. As he got up to leave, she asked, "Will you come back?" He nodded. "I want to help. I don't want to be who I was." "Then start small," she said. "Knead the dough. Hear the stories. That's enough for a beginning." Outside, the streets glistened under soft rain. Jason walked to his car with a lightness he hadn't felt in years. Not because anything had been solved, but because something had finally begun. A month passed. Spring had returned to the city, and so had something else. A quiet shift, almost invisible but real. At Crown Capital, profits remained strong, but the tone had changed. Fewer late-night meetings, more real conversations. People felt noticed. And Jason had changed the most. He hadn't gone back to his old position. No more chasing partner status. No more endless client calls. He had stepped into a new department, one Agatha had built herself: community and social impact. Every morning, Jason rode the subway out to a quiet corner of Brooklyn. An old warehouse had been renovated into something brighter, a space filled with light, warmth, and the smell of baked goods. Above the door hung a hand-painted sign: "The Taste of Memory. Free cooking classes for seniors. With love." Inside, laughter echoed from the kitchen. Elderly men and women mixed dough, shared stories, and teased Jason as he tried to fold pastries without ruining the edges. "Flour on your cheek again," laughed Mary, a retired schoolteacher who moved with surprising speed for someone in her 70s. "It's a mark of honor," Jason replied, grinning. "Proof of dedication." "You still overfill them, sweetie," she winked, pinching the dough expertly. Agatha strolled through, checking ovens and pouring tea. "You've got your own little gang now," she said as she passed Jason. "They're dangerous," he joked. One pie from them could end all global currency systems. They shared a look, warm, filled with the kind of quiet pride that doesn't need words. "You're doing well," she said, "and you're needed here." Jason nodded. It wasn't just a project. It was his second chance, not to rebuild a career, but to build a life that mattered. That evening, he stopped by Agatha's apartment. She had just finished organizing a shelf of old books. He handed her one, the same book where he'd once found the note from his mother. "Thank you," he said softly, "for not pushing me away when you could have." "I would never forgive myself if I had," she answered. "I already lost one family. I won't lose another. I still don't have all the answers. I'm still learning how to be more than my title. And you are. That's enough." He paused. "I've been thinking of reaching out to my father. He wrote me. Wants to talk." Agatha smiled gently. "Then talk. Listen. Just remember, forgiveness isn't weakness. It's strength and freedom." The next day, Jason was back at the cooking center. A boy of about 16 stood near the door, eyeing the trays of pies with curiosity and hesitation. Jason approached him. "Want one?" he asked. The boy nodded. "How much?" "Today, free. Always free here." The boy took one, hesitated. "Can I have two?" "You can have three," Jason said, handing him a paper bag. "Just eat them warm." The boy grinned and walked off. Jason watched him go, smiling faintly. Behind him, the kitchen bustled with voices, stories, and flour-covered hands. And for the first time in a long time, Jason felt fully present. Not calculating, not proving anything. Just there. That night, he recorded a voice memo on his phone, a private thought for no one but himself. Sometimes all it takes is a warm pie and a moment of kindness to remind someone that they matter, even if they forgot it themselves. Exactly 1 year had passed. Spring had returned to Manhattan's financial district. The wind carried hints of cherry blossoms and fresh rain. Businessmen hurried with phones pressed to their ears. Assistants balanced coffees in both hands, and the revolving doors of West Tower spun endlessly. But something unusual was happening at the building's entrance. A folding table, a neat cloth, a handwritten sign. Today, free pies. Tomorrow, gratitude. A taste that brings humanity back. Behind the table stood two people, an elderly woman in a knitted cardigan and a young man in a flour-dusted apron that read, "Doe remembers." "Jason?" A passing executive blinked in disbelief. "Is that you?" Jason smiled, holding out a warm pie. "Cabbage or apple?" What are you doing here? Weren't you an analyst?" "Still am," he grinned. "I just analyze different things now, like pastry thickness and community warmth." The man laughed awkwardly, took a pie, and walked away, still looking over his shoulder. Next to Jason stood Agatha. She looked out over the crowd, not with command, but with quiet contentment, like someone who had finally found peace in simply being seen. "Think they think we've lost it?" Jason asked. "Oh, probably," Agatha replied. "But some of them, maybe the right ones, will taste what we're really offering." Jason nodded, and they did. Some were hesitant, some smiled politely. Some came back for seconds. But every person who took a pie walked away just a little slower, a little softer. Later that day, Agatha took the elevator up to the top floor of Crown Capital one last time. She moved slowly, taking it all in. She walked past the boardroom where she had once stunned the entire leadership. She paused outside her old office. She removed the nameplate from the door, Agatha West, owner, and placed it gently in a drawer. She was done. Control had never been the goal. Connection had. Jason stayed on. Not chasing titles, not counting bonuses, but people listened to him now more than ever. Not because of power, but because he understood. One evening, he sat with Agatha again in her kitchen. "Do you regret anything?" he asked as he poured tea. She looked out the window. "Yes, I regret not finding you sooner, not holding Lauren's hand in her final days, not being braver." "But you changed everything," he said. "I changed what I could," she replied. "Sometimes that's all we get. One person, one pie, one moment to reach someone before the world makes them hard." Jason nodded. "I'm going to visit my father," he said. "He wrote again. He's trying." Agatha smiled. "Then listen. Say what needs to be said. Forgiveness is the only thing that breaks the cycle." The next morning, Jason returned to that same corner where it had all begun. But this time, he was the one standing behind the table. An older woman he didn't recognize stood nearby, selling dumplings in plastic containers. She looked tired, invisible to the crowd. Jason walked over. "One, please," he said. She blinked. "You sure?" "Absolutely." He handed her a 5. "Keep the change." He took the dumpling and bit into it on the spot. It was simple, warm, real. He smiled.